Welcome to the Erie Wellness Podcast, your go-to source for all things health, wellness, and living your best life right here in Erie. I'm your host, Lauren Brunetti, and I'm so excited to have you here. Each episode will dive into conversations with local experts and wellness professionals who are making an impact in the world of health and well-being. Before we jump in, be sure to like, share, and comment on this episode. We love hearing from you and seeing our community grow. Now let's get started. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce someone who is on a mission to help overwhelmed creatives breathe again. Devyn Price is the author of How to Be Average and the founder of Fiercely Creative, where she empowers artists to ditch perfectionism and rediscover their voice. Through a unique blend of vocal teaching, yoga, and creative coaching, Devyn provides practical mental wellness tools to help creatives move, create, and most importantly, have fun making art again. If you ever have felt stuck in the pressure of shoulds or like you need to be perfect to make meaningful work, Devyn is here to remind us that creativity thrives in imperfection. I can't wait to dive into this conversation and learn how we can all show up more freely in our creative lives. Let's get started. Welcome, Devyn. You started recognizing the need for this kind of work after teaching youth at School of Rock. Can you elaborate on that experience and what it showed you about creative struggles?
Yeah, so I worked with youth all the way up to adults. And what I found was that right around teenage years, we start to lose our creative play connection right when we're actually finding ourselves and finding our identities. And, usually environment will have played the biggest roles, but there's also this newfound sense of self awareness that can also put mental blocks up in our creative lives. So when I was working with a lot of the youth, they would start to come in very aware of their new bodies and their new sounds. I taught vocals mostly, and vocals is a very personal experience. And so people would come in kind of, and teenagers mostly would come in just kind of holding themselves and very quiet, hardly using their voice at all. And we had to kind of dig deeper because you can't get somebody to sing better if they're barely singing in the first place. And so I had to kind of get at that little spark of self-confidence, get them a little bit more aware of their own bodies in a positive way, as well as in a mental way, and being okay with their voices, especially as they were making these weird sounds. You're going through puberty and your voice is going to be all over the place. And so many people were ashamed of it. And just helping them to see that these are fun sounds that we can make, and that it's okay. And what I noticed is as they got older and I started to teach mainly the moms of these students that were coming in, they were also my students. Those were the ones that were the least likely to get their work done at home. And I'm talking about their work on their voice or on their music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they would come in with excuses. Oh, my kid had band practice and then I had to go and get my car fixed. And then we had to go to Atlanta. And then, there was always this stack of things that they needed to do. And the creative process of using their voice got put on the back burner. So this made me realize, okay, we've got to find a way to help them to see that this creative process is just as important as all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it came out to more than just let's sing better. We have to dig into the mental processes and the body awareness that go hand in hand with the creative process. And that's when I realized, okay, there's more to this than just singing. This is happening all across the board in terms of creativity. As a writer myself, I've experienced this stuff in writing. And so I know that people who do painting or other creative works are experiencing the same kind of thing. And just as people get more stressed, they're doing this stuff less.
And really all professionals, right? Like you need to be creative regardless of what your profession is. So kind of learning to find that creativity
Yeah,
within
innovation.
yourself is so important.
It is. Innovation comes from creativity. And so when you start stifling that creativity, innovation goes down. And when innovation goes down, what are you left with, really?
Absolutely. It feels like as adults, we've traded, like you said, fun and flow for the to-do lists and the deadlines. But why do you think so many people struggle to incorporate play and creativity into their daily lives? And how can we bring that spark back?
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest reasons is that we don't see value in what is being produced from creativity. So in America, we have this vision that productivity is good and your productivity must be of value monetarily, usually. And that's why a lot of work that we do, even mothers that stay at home, tend to get less recognition, even though they're doing so much invaluable work. They're still not getting the recognition that they need. And this goes doubly for creative work. My doodles are not going to be making money. I'm okay with that. And I'm not saying that you can't get paid through creative work. I think that's fantastic if you can. However, the value that society places on that because of the lack of productivity that is happening when it's the traditional productivity, we put it on the back burner because what do we get out of it? We don't
Mhm.
get anything tangible.
Mhm.
All right. So, there are things that we do. Mothers, especially when I say that they stay at home, we still have some tangible product of, taking care of our kids. We got to take care of our kids. And so by taking care of them, we are seeing the results of what we do. In
Mhm.
creativity, we kind of, okay, well, what's the value in this? What are we getting? And we're not connected to that valuable part that we are getting, which is that we're in a better place mentally and physically, because creative work does impact physicality. And so yeah, it's mainly this kind of idea that everything else is more important because we can see that it's more important.
Mhm.
But we think about, there are civilizations that in the past, and archaeologists have dug up the things that objects from these past civilizations. And what do we find most of the time? We do find a lot of, farm work and things like that, tools and stuff, but we also find clay pottery, baskets, weaving, jewelry, all these
Mhm.
creative works. This creativity is essential to humanity, and we have proof of that going back thousands of years.
How would you describe creativity?
Create That is a really big question. So creativity is literally, if we're going to get really specific, it is literally taking nothing and making it something. So, in a lot of religions, we have this creation um, lore around, how was the earth created? How was humanity created? Literally, nothing becomes something. And so, thoughts can actually be creative works.
Mhm.
Um, the more creative, I would say, if we're getting into more creative thoughts, it would be thoughts that were not connected from what you were doing before. So I think it was Alan Watts who had a little creativity exercise where you think of words that are not connected to each other, and the idea is to get them as least connected to each other as possible.
Mhm.
And that actually helps your creation muscle because you're literally creating something from nothing. Um, I think we can add a little emotionality to that and say that it's something that brings us joy.
Mhm.
So there's nothing and then there's something and it makes us glad. And that's what creativity is.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to say that, while I'm being creativity, that all of that is bringing me joy and, intention and purpose behind it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you you incorporate mental wellness, yoga, and creativity into your work. How do you see the mind-body connection helping people find balance and purpose and connection in their daily lives?
Yes. So there's so much scientific evidence that shows that what we think has an effect on the body. What we feel has an effect on the body. So, you even when you think of being scared, just think of it for a moment. And you can probably start to feel that your shoulders are coming in. Maybe you feel something in the pit of your stomach. Everybody feels it a little bit differently, but even just thinking these things
Mhm.
have these microscopic to even macroscopic effects that we can see and feel. And a lot of people, especially in the Western world, we are so stuck up here in our heads, and we forget that our body exists. I mean, can you think of a time just throughout your day today that maybe you've forgotten that your body even exists?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're just in your head, and you forget that there's other things attached to your head.
Yeah. Yeah. We're a whole nervous system, an entire system that's not just a brain. We have a brain, a brainstem, nerves that go into the muscles. So many nerves, we can't even count them all, where they go into our muscles, into our fascia, into our skin. Almost every part of our body has nerve endings in it. And they're all connected directly to the brain. And the things, you think touching a hot stove, our brain will react so quickly, our hands will move because that connection is so tight. It's
Mhm.
so quick. And so when we're living in our heads and forgetting about our body, we're forgetting about most of our central nervous system. um, so I'm a big believer in using the body to reconnect with the mind and the mind to reconnect with the body. And what that means is that um, we might use breath, for example.
Mhm.
So if you take a deep breath, and you can do this right now if you want to, just take a deep breath and then let it out with a sigh. You might already feel some tingling, maybe some relaxation.
Mhm.
Um, Already I can hear my voice is already calmer than it was before just because I did that. And that was all through thinking. We just thought about breathing, then we breathed, and then we had effect. Everything is a feedback loop in our bodies.
Mhm.
And so I noticed this when I was working a lot with vocals, that people think that when they're singing, they're just using their vocal folds or their vocal cords, as they call them. Um, but it's the whole body. And the more that I got people to use their whole body, the more they started to feel good in their body and they started to get more confident. And that confidence made them explore more with their voices. And when they explored more with their voices, they gained more confidence and their voices got better. And it just became a loop. And I had some of my students come back to me saying that they found that, oh, now I'm writing again, or now I'm painting again, or I just feel better overall in life, all because I was incorporating body movement with the vocal work.
Mhm.
And so I started to do that with some of my clients, just using breath, using somatic calming. And somatic is just mainly, to be very, very, very general, the connection between mind and body, and helping to calm the system and remove blockages. So when we are tense from being overwhelmed or anxious, we're creating blockages in our body.
Mhm.
That could be in the fascia, that can be in the muscles. I'm sure we've felt it, oh, my shoulder is always tense. So now I'm sore and achy. Um, when we get rid of that, just creativity flows better. Everything just starts to come together, and you get more confidence, you feel calmer. Even
Mhm.
when things start to feel threatening, you're able to get back into that zone when you're more connected with your body, of that calm,
Mhm.
safe feeling.
So, what advice do you have for someone who feels creatively drained but doesn't know how to recharge?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a big one. As so many people, I'm surprised they're like, I don't know how to rest. Um, and you're like, oh my gosh. And it's so surprising, but I've been a victim of this as well, of not really knowing how to calm my own system. So usually it starts with the breath and
Mhm.
becoming aware of the breath. Um, and if we can just take a moment out of each day, I usually recommend when you go to bed, because hopefully everybody goes to bed. If you're not going to bed, start there. Start going to bed. Um,
Insomniacs.
yeah. Once you're in bed, you lie down and put your hand on your belly,
Mhm.
and then just feel your hands rise. Even if it's just a little bit, it doesn't need to be this huge amount. Just you're kind of feeling the belly kind of go a little bit more pressure into your hand as you breathe in, and a little bit less as you go out. And you do that about 10 times. If you're very lucky, falling asleep before you get to 10. And yeah, you're already more relaxed. As you do that each night, you start to think about it during the day as well.
Mhm.
So maybe
Mhm.
while you're doing some dishes, maybe while you're, getting your kids ready for school, you just take that breath. You just think about that for a moment, and that just
Mhm.
creates some space.
Mhm.
As you become more and more aware of the breath, you start to become a little more aware of the body. So you start thinking about where's your body in space? Where are your feet right now? Where are your hands? Where is your back? And that surprisingly is a question we don't ask ourselves. We forget where our feet are, but this gives us some grounding. This gives us some spatial awareness,
Mhm.
and that alone can calm the nervous system enough to start thinking about other things that you could be doing creatively. Um, I you don't need to bring out paint supplies. You don't need to bring out your pen. You start with just looking around for what's beautiful to you. You don't even have to capture it on the phone. You're capturing it right here in your head.
Mhm.
And you start thinking, okay, I'm going to look around for beauty. What are 10 things I find beautiful? And when you start doing that, you start thinking about that because you're searching for it. It's that
Mhm.
confirmation bias.
Mhm.
Eventually, you can start arranging things. So I have some clients that, for example, they want to start knitting, and but they don't know where to start. They don't know how they can make the time to knit. Maybe they even know how to knit, but they just don't know how to actually sit down and knit. So I just tell them, can you just arrange your yarn in a pretty way on your desk, on your table? Just arrange it.
Mhm.
And then they'll start arranging that and start seeing beautiful things together. And then they might start braiding it. And maybe they'll start moving it around in a way. You start to see these little ways that you can start manipulating the world into making it a little more beautiful.
Mhm.
And you can just go from there. There's no set way. I do work with my one-on-one clients to get further and further into the process so that maybe they can pick up that pen or that paintbrush eventually. But that right there, just arranging the yarn or looking for something beautiful is a creative act. And that takes no time at all. And so you have to be in that space first. So I recommend the breathing first and the body awareness first, then looking for those beautiful moments.
I love that suggestion, looking for beauty and just kind of taking that in. It kind of reminds me of, people putting an emphasis on finding gratitude throughout their day. And that brings generally people who have more gratitude throughout the day are generally more happy.
Absolutely. And this is a form of gratitude because you're appreciating the beauty.
Absolutely. If someone, like you said, if they just are short on time or they don't know what to do, you would tell them to focus in on their breath and then look for, 10 things that are beautiful. Is that your suggestion, right?
Yeah, yeah, usually the breath and, depending on where they are in terms of levels of anxiety,
Mhm.
we might start with the breath or we might start with body awareness. Everybody's a little bit different. Some people find focusing on breath, actually panic inducing. And
Mm-hmm.
usually that's when you're in really high levels of anxiety, and it's perfectly okay. It's very normal. There's nothing wrong with you. If you're alive, you're breathing right.
Mm-hmm.
um, However, sometimes it's a little more helpful to start with, okay, where are my feet? Where are my hands? Where is my nose? Things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then when you start to feel that calmness, then you can start focusing on the breath. Either one of those, you can switch them around, is fine. And then when you feel that you're in that calmer space, then start looking around for those beautiful things. And
Right.
if you want to go a little bit step further, if you feel like that was easy for me, start moving your body in ways that feel right to you.
Mm-hmm.
There's no correct way. So it can just be swaying, even if it's just a little sway, or it can be actually like moving your shoulders back. And you start to move your body in creative ways, which helps break up some of those blockages, those mental blockages that you have, which makes you a little bit more able to create or even just to find beauty.
Mm-hmm. One thing, and this is probably more focused towards adults, although kids can struggle with this as well, but you help creatives ditch perfectionism, which I know that perfectionism has snuck up in my life throughout the years. What's one sneaky way perfectionism shows up that people might not even realize?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are so many sneaky ways. I think on a really large scale, it would be what society is expecting of us. Um, we've got to have a perfect clean house. We have to have, and I think in a way we are aware of it, but we just don't realize in our day to day we, how much value we place on that.
Mhm.
Needing to have that house clean, or needing to have a house, I've got to buy that house and own it because society says that's what adults do, and so I'm gonna do it. And in a way that's perfectionism, because we're playing by rules, and we have to achieve these specific goals in order to be valued.
Mhm.
Really, when we start thinking about in order to, and then blank, we start going, in order to what? um, and so I think that is one of the big things. Another way is that a lot of the times what we're avoiding is because of this need for perfectionism. So, for example, I used when I wanted to, I've always wanted to write a novel, and then I just haven't written a novel. And the reason that I didn't sit down and write a novel is because I needed to have an award winning, life changing, magnus opus for the generations to come
Mhm.
kind of novel. And if that didn't happen, then what's the point of writing a novel? And so if I sit down, if I have those expectations on myself when I sit down to a blank page, how am I going to live up to that?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
is not going to happen, right? I mean, if it does, great, but the likeliness of doing all of that is so slim,
Right.
and it actually blocks the creativity that's needed for that kind of work as well.
Mhm.
So a lot of the times it's just you know, um, with the novel, or with the, painters might be painting or something. They might be avoiding that because of the perfectionism, but they may not realize that they're doing dishes instead. They're doing, oh, I've suddenly got to vacuum the whole house. That's more important than this writing or this painting.
Mhm.
And a lot of the reasons behind that might just be because of the expectations of perfectionism that you're putting on yourself.
Mhm. I know. If I had waited for the perfect conditions to arise, like to start this podcast, let's say, like I never would have started it because, things are never going to be perfect. I'm never going to have a lot of time to be able to do all the, things that I have. You just have to just choose to do it. And whatever you can produce in the amount of time that you have, that's what you do.
Yes, yes, exactly. And you got to start before you're ready.
What is a creative habit or ritual that you swear by?
Yeah, the breathing that I talked about earlier, is I would recommend that for everybody, for anything. The right before bed, I do it before I wake up, several times a day. Also wiggling your body, even if it's just for a moment, just take a moment and just wiggle, just shake or wiggle. And that releases so much pent up energy that we have. I also make sure one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to people is, what is the smallest amount of work that you can do that you will do? So, let's say, I had somebody that I spoke to who wanted to play the drums. They had an electric drum set and they just never went and played the drums. And, so I asked them, where is their drum set? They said in the basement near the gym. I said, well, what do you work out regularly? Yes, I work out regularly. Okay. So every time you pass that drum set to go work out, you turn it on. And every time you leave, you turn it off. And that's it. That's the only thing you have to do. And
I
it
should tell
starts Sorry?
my husband has a drum set right next to his work station down in the basement. I should tell him to turn that on just to get some creative juices flowing and start to get some momentum on, actually playing the drum set again.
Yeah, and just the fact that it's next to his workplace could be a pro or a con depending on how his brain works. But I often say, have whatever you want to do, have it where you're going to do it as well. So if you go and watch TV every night, and that's already a habit, you already do that, then put a notebook right next to the television and just, when you turn the television on, open it up and start doodling. Doesn't matter what you do, just doodle, scratch, whatever. The whole point is you just open up the notebook and make some marks when you watch the TV. And if you have that notebook right where you sit down and watch the TV, then you're more likely to use it than if you have to go upstairs, go into your bedroom, go and get it off the bookshelf, come back, So always have it there and always have what you need. And just having that placement where you need it is going to help you even with that little tiny little thing. So make it easy to get to, make it easy to do.
One question that I was just thinking of while you were talking is, kids are really good about being creative, but like you said, once they kind of hit that teenage years, they start to lose the creativity. And then in adulthood, we lose it very quickly. What are some things that we can be doing and talking to our youth to make sure that they don't lose that creativity and that they keep the momentum going into adulthood?
Yeah, I would say have something for yourself. A lot of times when we become teenagers, we start to be very aware of what other people think. And that can be such a huge block in creativity and in self-confidence. And so have something that's just very secretly yours. And you can, find a space that's very secretly yours and do your creative stuff in that spot. Even if it's just for a moment before you go to bed, first thing when you wake up, when you get your homework done. When I was a teenager, I used to have a little notebook and I would write poems on my floor, in my bedroom. And I had to share a bedroom with my sister. So I didn't have, my own space, but I had my own little bubble where I had this little notebook and I'd lie down on my stomach on the floor, listen to the radio, listen to some music, and just write some poems. And never, I hid them. No, these poems would not see the light of day. And many of them, I still don't know where they are to this day, probably in my mom's garage. But they, if you have that own little space and the own little thing, just to be yourself, to that nobody else sees, then you still hold on to that little spark of creativity and just be fiercely protective of it. Don't let that go. If you're a teenager and you're listening to this, please, please, please don't let that go. You need it more than anything else in this world. And actually adults too. Okay.
Right. Go find it.
Adults, go find it again. Teenagers, if you still have that little bit, just be so fiercely protective of it.
Well, thank you so much, Devyn, for all of this wonderful advice. I enjoyed our conversation. For listeners who want to take a dive deeper, how can they work with you? And can you share more about your one-on-one coaching and your break-free workshops?
Sure. And you can find me at the moment at fiercelyvocal.com, or even more, I am in the process of changing that. So the best way to get in, to keep up with the changes, is to subscribe to my newsletter.
Mhm.
So if you find that fiercelyvocal.com, it should go to any new setting. Go on to it, it should have a newsletter form that pops up.
Mhm.
Sign up for that, because then you can come with me on any other future workshops, as well as the one-on-one coaching.
Mhm.
You can also email me, devyn@fiercelyvocal.com, and just say, hey, what are you doing? Sign me up for your newsletter. I'll do it all for you if it's too much. um, for the one-on-one coaching, we have 45-minute sessions that we really dig deep into a lot of the stuff that we talked about today. Um, I find that most people are in three categories. They're either in a state of such overwhelm that they are not doing anything, that they have, maybe they're not in overwhelm in the second stage. They're kind of not in the overwhelm. They've been dealing with anxiety for a little while, but they still haven't figured out how to rest or
Mhm.
to play. And
Mhm.
that's where we're at, especially with a lot, the second stage, with the rest, is also learning to be more in tune with the body. And then we have people who have, they work with the body, they've done all that, but they just don't know how to be creative. They don't know where to start. And so
Mhm.
we figure out where you are in that, and then we work with wherever you're at and help you to get back to creativity. And a lot of the one-on-one coaches, we go even further with that. Once you're creating regularly, we get you into that one creative thing, one or two, that really creates joy. So writing a novel, painting a mural, recording an album, just singing in general,
Mhm.
um, will get you to that space.
Mhm.
For the Break Free workshop, which is coming up April 17th, in 2025, just in case you're watching this further out, we are working together on mostly that first stage with a little bit of integration into that second stage. So what I mean by that is we'll work on finding all of the things that are pressuring you,
Mhm.
and we get rid of some of that through some mental exercises, as well as some physical exercises, and even some vocal exercises. And don't worry, you'd be on mute, nobody can hear you. um, Everybody, can is doing this on their own space, but we're kind of doing it together as a community as I guide you through these. And by the time you finish this break free workshop, you should just feel a little bit lighter, a little bit less to do, and a little bit more open for rest and creativity.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again for sharing all of this with us. It was wonderful to have you on the podcast and just share this other element of wellness. So,
Thank
thank you
you.
for this conversation. I love the reminder that creativity isn't about perfection, it's just about showing up, breathing, and allowing yourself to create freely. So, if today's episode resonated with you, be sure to check out Devyn's website and explore ways to work with her. Today, Devyn is offering a 50% off discount for any first time workshop participants. If you put in the code Erie, the course will decrease by 50%. So thank you for giving our listeners that discount.
Yes, no problem at all. And I'd love to see more people from the Erie community in these spaces, because I think we could all in this community deal with a little bit more relaxation, rest, and creativity.
That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you, Devyn, again for the conversation. Have a great rest of your day.
Yes, thank you. You too.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Erie Wellness Podcast. I truly appreciate you being a part of this journey. If you loved today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. For more daily wellness inspiration and behind-the-scenes content, be sure to follow me on Instagram at the Erie Wellness Podcast. I can't wait to connect with you again soon.